Hello! That was really weird, awkward, long hello.
It was a very long delayed hello. That being said, welcome to Kentucky Route 5, everyone. We're two guys who have only ever briefly been to Kentucky. Talk about things they like.
Yeah. Yes, that is what we do. This is a podcast that we talk about our
This is
top
a podcast.
5 favorite things. It's a top 5 podcast.
That's right.
I don't know if those exist
heard it
besides us, but, you know, you've seen top 5 videos. We do a podcast, because we're...
Definitely not an oversaturated market.
Yeah.
Very, very
Ooh.
unique thing that we're doing here.
Now I'm rethinking my whole life. All right, we should probably tell them what our topic for the week is, Chris.
Yeah, that's fair. This week's topic is going to be our top 5 adult-oriented shows.
Yes.
That being said,
Or a better sounding title, top 5 TV shows for adults.
geared for adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no kid shows, because me and Chris both love kid shows, and that is totally a topic for a different list.
Yeah. Me and Austin are both just grown children.
We're just children. Just nothing but children.
But we do watch adult shows
We do.
when our parents aren't around, so
Whoa,
don't tell anyone.
I watched most of these shows with my parents, thank you very much.
Because I will get grounded. And with that...
Do you want to, with that, should we go over your number 5?
I'm dying. Hold on.
Okay.
All right. Cool. Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
All right, Chris's number 5.
All right, my number 5 for my top 5 favorite shows for adults is The Queen's Gambit. A little bit of a newer show to hit the block, but a good one nonetheless. And one I never really thought that I would have liked at all.
You're not a big chess fan?
Considering the subject matter. Yeah,
I thought you were.
I don't know anything about chess.
I thought you were a chess head. Is that someone else?
Did you genuinely think I was a chess head?
No, I'm trying to make comedy,
Okay.
Chris.
Okay, cool. No, yeah, I'm dumb. I don't know how to play chess. Chess is for people who have, like, the foresight to do, like, crazy moves. I'm very in the moment. I'm more of a checkers guy, which is the Neanderthals chess.
I'm more of a Chinese checkers guy because it makes me feel cultured.
Well,
That's also a joke. I've never played Chinese checkers once.
Okay, good. Well, maybe you should start. I don't
Maybe.
know.
Tell me about Queen's Gambit. Besides that it has to do with chess, tell me some more about the show.
So, Queen's Gambit centers around a female character who is kind of growing up in a time period where men are still very much like the big bosses in pretty much most regards in terms of like competitive sports and competitive games, I guess, in terms of chess. But it centers around this girl who is an orphan, and I'm not gonna admit, no spoilers.
No, yeah.
But
Unless you want to,
she
it's
ends
up to you. I might
Yeah.
accidentally spoil one of my shows later. I don't think so, but who knows? I'm not going to promise no spoilers, but no spoilers on Queen's Gambit.
But yeah, in this orphanage that she grows up in, she kind of gets hooked on pills, and that's kind of a very key point to the plot. Is that as she grows older, despite her success and fame in chess as someone who just has like a really solid grasp around this game, she deals with lots of addiction in terms of drugs and alcohol, and a lot of death in her life as well. And it becomes not only like a drama about this chess prodigy, but as this person who is just like constantly going through suffering, but also like at the same time experiencing a lot of success. And it brings up a lot of interesting subject matter. And I don't know. it made me feel a lot of things. The show did that I definitely did not. I did not expect to feel going into a show based about chess. But it's a wonderfully shot show. Very very pleasant to look at. All the aesthetics are just on point. And despite how short of a show it was, I feel like it still had me very much enraptured in the very short runtime that it had. Just the story, you kind of follow her from her young kid life all the way up into her young adult life, and it's just it flows very effortlessly. Although you go through a pretty decent amount of time in a relatively short amount of time, considering all the episodes and the way that it's cut up. But yeah, just really solid. I guess drama's not usually my go-to in terms of genres, but this one definitely knocked it out of the park. Excellent storytelling. Yeah. If you haven't seen The Queen's Gambit, even if you don't like chess, as someone who has only played chess a few times, and that is maybe once or twice before watching The Queen's Gambit, and 3 or 4 times after watching The Queen's Gambit, because I was like, man, I gotta get into chess after watching that. And then I realized, wow, I shouldn't play chess after watching The Queen's Gambit. I would highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
See, I haven't seen Queen's Gambit, and I'm not into chess, but I do love drugs and alcohol addiction. So, it sounds like a show for me.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's...
That was also a joke.
They deal with the subject matter really well.
That's good. That's cool.
And it's there's a lot of good character development, and not only our main character. I should look up, because I really like the actress who plays the main character. Let me.
Anna Taylor, right?
Yeah, Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
And she plays Beth Harmon. And her acting in this film is definitely pretty spot on. I feel like her character might be slightly autistic, because she's very very kind of cut and dry, very blunt. But at the same time, she's very, very intelligent. And they kind of hint at that in the show. Socially, she doesn't really know how to interact with others very well. But when it comes to chess and understanding it, it just comes effortlessly to her. Which, if you've dealt with autism at all, which I know Austin has, that is definitely kind of a telltale sign. Is that they typically struggle with social interactions a little bit more.
No, that's definitely a fair way to put it.
But there's certain things that they usually just really excel at. Whether it be mathematics or history, but yeah,
certain type of knowledge. My brother, by the way, my brother is autistic. My brother was really into dinosaurs a lot. He's definitely kind of, as he's growing up, he's kind of changing what his focus is. But dinosaurs was a big thing for a long time. He was 6 years old and he could impress paleontologists. There was this one time where he literally impressed a paleontologist with how much he knew about dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely is someone who may or may not be on the spectrum. the vibes I got from the main character, Beth Harmon, and honestly, I thought they portrayed her pretty well, and the character development that she had, being a child, and growing into a young adult, I thought was very interesting, and they handled it pretty well. And Anna Taylor-Joy really knocked that role out of the park.
She's an awesome actress. I haven't seen a lot of stuff she's
really
in, but every time I'm impressed. It'll be a not great movie, but she'll still elevate it because she's good.
Yeah. Yeah,
what's
agreed.
that one?
Split?
Split. Yeah, Split wasn't good. There was also that other movie
Yeah.
we watched. There was like some horror movie that she starred in that.
Oh, yeah.
Not the Witch, because she also was in that. I haven't seen that.
She was in The Witch.
But there was some other
And
horror
she
movie.
was also good in The Witch.
Yeah, I don't remember what the name of the movie is. This is a terrible thing to even bring up because I don't remember what it's called. But there's this other movie she was in. It wasn't a great movie, but somehow she, like, just her acting in it really elevated it. But that's really not the point. This is not why we love Anna, Taylor-Joy. That's a different podcast for a different day.
Just like the Ryan Reynolds podcast, which
Yes.
we'll get around to.
Thank you for mentioning Ryan Reynolds, because I don't think he was going to come up naturally. So we need to, be able to put him in. We got to be able to put him in the tags. So thank you for mentioning him.
Yeah, cool. I got you.
All right, we're gonna move on to my number 5.
Oh yes, you're number 5.
Which Chris doesn't know. We normally discuss what my list is. Today this is a rough week, and neither of us brought it up.
Yeah. Today's the day before Mother's Day, for any of you wondering.
Yeah.
And so this week has been kind of just chaotic in general.
Yeah. So let's get to it. My number 5, it's Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Which is a show that I kind of had heard, good things about. Everyone loved most of the show. Which we'll get to that in a little bit.
Season 8 doesn't exist.
I mean, fine, I'll discuss here. I think I went in knowing that everyone hated Season 8 and thought it was perfectly fine. Was it the best season ever? No, sure. But was it completely passable and okay quality? Sure. The final reveal of who sits on the throne at the end of the thing, which I won't say who it is, was I mildly disappointed with who it was? Sure, maybe a little bit. But, it really, I do also think part of that is because I went into it knowing that people were disappointed, and I went into it binging it, not anticipating it and all that. So, I did have a different perspective, and going into it with that perspective, knowing that, and knowing a lot about what happened in the last season, because I listened to a podcast that discussed it years before when I thought I wasn't going to ever watch it.
So, that being said, I feel like it's okay if you spoil Game of Thrones at this point, and I'm never going to watch it, quite frankly.
You really should. I genuinely, I'm telling you, it's a pretty good show. I kind of went into it expecting, that it wasn't going to be good. Because wasn't going to be good, I just didn't expect it to be my type of thing. But it's a really good action drama show, and, the writing is great, and there's a lot of, comedy in a show where you typically wouldn't think of if someone explained to you Game of Thrones, you wouldn't think there'd be any real comedic elements.
Well, as you know, I am a big fan of comedy when it's not a central focus in the show.
So I think you would probably like Game of Thrones' comedic elements.
That being said, I would like to guess who sits on the throne at the end.
Okay.
Is it Queen Daenerys?
No.
The Dragon Lady?
People wanted it to be her, and I guess spoiler, it's not her.
Okay, well, that was my one shot at.
Yeah.
I probably don't know any of the other characters.
You probably wouldn't care about the character who sat on the throne. It's kind of a letdown, but
tell me.
It's Bran the Broken, who's this kid who falls out of a tower in the first episode, and he's kind of just crippled the rest of the show. He eventually gets some magical powers. I guess we're spoiling the show now. I tried not to. You didn't spoil your show, but I guess I have to spoil my show now.
Well, my show's been out for a few months. Your show has been completed for a few years now.
It's only 2019. It's only 2 years.
Only 2 years that the entire show in its entirety has been out.
Fair, but the point is, you derailed me multiple times. I like this show. I think the show is really good. I think the characters, almost all of the characters, you end up either, loving or hating when you're supposed to. They do a really good job of developing characters. Okay. Daenerys' arc in the last season, not great. That's one of the complaints. I get it. But if you go in knowing that the show the last season isn't great, you'll probably enjoy yourself. Because it's not bad enough that it's terrible, in my opinion, at least.
Okay.
Yeah. I would encourage you to watch it. It's a fun show, lots of violence, lots of action. You know,
I
maybe
do like violence.
don't watch it with your parents. There is a lot of, you know,
There's a lot of
it's an
nudity from what I've
HBO
heard.
show,
And,
so
and,
HBO loves to throw a lot of nudity in the show.
and a lot
Honestly,
of sex.
yes, and I wish
Didn't hear.
there were sometimes I wish it wasn't in the show because I would feel a lot more comfortable telling more people about it. I mean, I'm telling the whole world technically right now. I mean, no one's gonna see it, but I'm telling the whole
You're
world.
telling all of our 2 viewers
Yeah.
who are probably watching.
But yeah, Game of Thrones, great show. Watch it or don't. That's your choice. It's your prerogative. It's whatever. I think it's worth it. I hope I did an okay job discussing. I guess I should. No, I didn't. I did a horrible job discussing it. The general plot, which you definitely discussed on yours, I didn't even touch on mine. Just acknowledge that some of the issues people had. So this show is set in like a kind of fantasy world. There's got a, you know,
Fantasy Middle Earth.
yeah, fantasy Middle Earth-esque. Yeah, and you have a lot of these characters, and they're all trying to. There's a lot of these different families, and a lot of them have claims to the throne throughout the show, and the whole kind of idea is who's going to rule Westeros is kind of the general idea of the show. As it changes, there's people who are trying to get there, but yeah, it's a good show. Watch it. Don't. Who cares? Let's go to Chris's number 4.
I don't know. Who cares? I'm leaving.
I'm done. We're moving on. Chris's number 4. Here we go.
All right, my number 4 is a little sci-fi show called Fringe. And so man, I've got a very long and very strange history with this show.
Okay, I'm very intrigued now.
Well, I remember seeing my first episode of the show on like live TV, which I haven't had in like years. And it was a very intriguing episode. It was like very Twilight Zone or kind of like X-Files-esque. Where our 2 main protagonists were trying to find out, I think in this specific episode, it was like a werewolf man was on a plane, or something to that effect. But the plane crashed or something like that, and they had to find the guy, because he made it out alive, and he made it into hiding. And I was like, man, that's a cool show. I remember watching as a much younger child. And then I don't remember what it was that sparked that memory. But like one day I was just thinking of like shows I wanted to watch. And I had that memory like spark back into my mind. And I was like, oh, I've got to look up what is this? And I looked up that episode by the plot description, the very loose plot description that I just gave you. And then the show Fringe popped up, and I was like, all right, I'm going to binge this whole show.
Okay.
And luckily, it was on streaming for me. And so,
Fringe used to be on Netflix. It's probably on Hulu now because it's a Fox show. That's just me speculating, knowing ownership of companies. It's probably on Hulu. I could be completely wrong. I watched
that entire show, start to finish, in about the course of a month, I think.
Wow.
And maybe a little bit less, probably 2 weeks or a month. I watched it a lot, and it's got like 8 seasons, so it's not a light watch either.
No.
But it's, if you're a fan of sci-fi, and kind of general wackiness concerning like things that really shouldn't be able to happen, but do anyways, I would highly recommend this. It follows 2 characters really, a investigator who gets kind of recruited into this kind of, not paranormal investigations, I would say, more like specifically abnormal investigations. Is like, it's still very science focused, but I would say it's sci-fi focused. But in that world, of course, there isn't sci-fi. It's just what's happening. and there's a whole bunch of madness going on with like parallel dimensions and multiple realities, and like you find out some pretty interesting things, and there's certain reasons that all this kind of crazy stuff is happening in their world. And man, it's just a roller coaster of a ride. It does again, as in most shows that run, into the 8th season mark. It hits its growing pain, or rather, it's the finishing of its growing pains. In that 8th, 7th season, where things start to get a little bit loosey goosey with the plot, and they kind of start to rush to a finish. But yeah, I would say as far as a sci-fi show with a lot of twists and turns, that's got a lot of mystery elements involved in it as well. This show is phenomenal. The lead female actress is played by what's her name? She's from that '70s show, the tall redheaded lady.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm almost positive. I could be wrong.
I'm looking at the main picture. I'm gonna say you're wrong.
I'm probably wrong. I'm almost positive now that I am wrong.
Yeah,
I am indeed wrong.
I'm looking at a picture of the pretty much the whole cast, I think, or the main cast. It looks like, and I don't recognize this actress.
Yeah, no, I was wrong.
So
in the show, she looks a lot more like.
So I have some basic
like that actress
knowledge of Fringe, because this is one of those shows where I probably know too much to ever go back and watch it, because my parents used to watch it, and I would just be in the room on my computer while it was on, so I'd catch I've probably seen some episodes all the way through. I've seen a third of some episodes. I've seen it just it fluctuates. So I know general. I remember being like, oh, that's a kind of cool show. Never enough to watch it all the way, but I remember enjoying it. I remember really liking the older guy on it, the doctor. I think?
The dad of the the dad of Peter Bishop. He's Walter Bishop.
Yeah, he's a doctor.
He's a little
isn't
bit
he?
He was a doctor. His son was a scientist, but his father was kind of a genius.
Yeah.
Kind of a mad scientist type genius too. And maybe the problems may or may not have stemmed from him, maybe?
I think from the knowledge I have, I remember it being his fault, yes.
Yeah, no, it is. Spoilers. Yeah. But also, this show has been completed for many, many, many years, so if you haven't seen it yet, that's on you.
That's a really mean way to look at this. Hey, hear about these shows we love. Oh, you haven't seen it yet? Forget you. You don't get to enjoy it. You don't get to enjoy it. I'm gonna spoil it immediately.
Oh, I'm only gonna mildly spoil it.
I'm just gonna drop all the spoilers. I don't really remember much though. I know they deal. I know they deal with alternate worlds at one point.
Alternate realities.
Yeah, that's all I really remember, and general enjoyment.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy TV show. But if you like the X-Files or the Twilight Zone. I think you'd really enjoy this show quite a bit, and I would definitely recommend giving it a go if you've got the time and nothing else to watch.
It's fair.
Or if you're just looking for a recommendation, I guess.
Look for a new show.
There's have to be nothing else to watch.
Yeah, there's hundreds of thousands of shows these days.
There's a lot of media out there, guys.
There really is. All right, time for my number 4, the best number 4.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna have to disagree.
Let's talk.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, my show is the show Atypical. Atypical is a comedy drama, like a dramedy, if you will. It's a Netflix original. There's a lot of Netflix originals on our 2 lists, respectively. I feel like there's at least 4 total, and there was a couple that almost made the list. I almost put Stranger Things on my list. Stranger Things, great. That's my review for that. It's not on the list. It doesn't get anything more.
Yeah, I totally honestly forgot about Stranger Things, but I like it a lot.
Yeah. So Atypical. The general plot is it's not a sitcom, but it kind of has that sitcom vibe of like you kind of just follow these characters in their lives. There's not like a huge overarching like plot. So the general idea is that the main character on the show, who I forgot the character's name or the actor. I probably should have, done some research going into this, not just, jumped in. I'm pulling it up.
That's part of the fun is
the
watching
awkwardness, yeah. The main character's name is Sam Gardner. He is played by Keir Gilchrist. And the main character, if you don't know the term atypical, it comes from, it's a play off of the term neurotypical, which means people who don't have like autism. Someone who's atypical is someone who is this show is all about this character with autism. So
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The main character Sam, he's autistic. His thing is he loves penguins. That's his thing. He knows a lot about penguins and aquatic wildlife. That's his, one thing that, he knows a lot about. And I think all the characters, not all the characters, most of the characters are really like fun characters that you just kind of fall in love with the characters and you want to see them achieve things and you want to be in their lives kind of a thing. It's like one of those shows where it's like, oh, these characters are really well written. I wish I could be friends with them kind of a show. And like the people, you're just going through seeing this kid's life of just like dealing with autism in high school. And like we've mentioned earlier, autism hits closer to home for me because of my brother. So like there was a lot of like little things you'd be like, oh, he's stimming there, which is like means stimulating. It's like what they do to like release energy they have, and like so it's just like the nuance. Like it's just really tackles autism well as just being really funny and having really charming characters. It's great. It's got I think 3 seasons out right now. They are confirmed for a 4th and final season at some point. It's gonna come out and it's a great watch. I think each episode's roughly it's a Netflix show, so nothing follows exact timelines, but it's roughly a 30-minute show. It's Netflix, so you either get a 20-minute episode or a 45-minute episode. But yeah, it's a really good show. His sister is a big part of it. His sister, whose name is Casey Gardner. She's played by Bridget Lundy Payne. You may know her from the hit movie Bill and Ted 3.
Oh, no, I wouldn't. I didn't watch that movie.
Oh, that's fair. No, most people didn't, and they probably shouldn't have, because that movie is terrible. Yeah. But she actually did a good job in it. But yeah. You got Michael Rappaport plays the dad. That's his host, right? Yeah, Rappaport. He's normally like a really like I think comedic actor typically, but he plays more of like a serious grounded character in this. So it's kind of weird and out of place. You don't expect him to be like the loving father typically. And he does a really good job. I guess I'll say the last main character. Then there's also Jennifer Jason Leigh, who plays the character Elsa Gardner, which is really weird just to hear the name Elsa not in Frozen. Yeah, I was
gonna say Frozen.
Yeah, it's weird to hear the name Elsa not in Frozen, and they say it a lot because she's one of the main characters. It's a great show. Like I'm probably not doing it justice, but it's like one like more so than Game of Thrones. I would encourage pretty much anyone to go watch this. It's I think technically TVMA because I think there might be those occasional like cursing episodes, but in general it's a pretty appropriate show. It's just the characters are really charming. There's a bunch of other side characters I didn't mention because then we'll be discussing this show way longer than we should. We probably already are. But yeah, go check it out. I would say so far, and actually, honestly, thinking about most of my list, I think this is probably it's number 4 in like how I liked it, but number 2 in the sense of it's something you need to go watch, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Number 2 in your recommendations.
Like in recommendations to go watch this is number 2. My number 1 is my number 1 recommendation, but like this is a show that I would say pretty much everyone should go watch. I think you'll have a good time, and it's insightful on autism, which not a lot of people have insight on that, so it can be very beneficial.
Yeah, I feel like, man, I mean, I'm gonna have a moment to talk about autism real quick.
Oh, okay.
Just because I don't know, I feel like it's becoming a little bit more well known.
Yeah.
At least in comparison to like what media used to kind of portray it as. But
we've come a long way from Rain Man.
Yeah.
Which is in no way a good example of someone with autism. Like, yes, a lot of shows with autistic characters kind of fall into the maybe giving them a little more of the symptoms than one person typically has. But Rain Man literally gave him every possible idiosyncrasy that an autistic person could have. And it's not good for that in that sense. It doesn't show a good example. And there's, what's the other crappy we should crap on? What's that movie that, Sia made? I feel like we're supposed to hate that. I didn't see it. Sia, the musician.
Oh yeah.
She made a movie about that was supposed to be displaying an autistic character, and she did a horrible job, from what I've heard.
From what I've heard, every you said is pretty much like a terrible representation of autism.
It literally will do more harm than good by even existing.
Yeah.
So.
But I do like that a lot of media is starting to kind of write in more autistic characters.
Yeah.
And kind of making that a more well-known thing. Although I feel like if you don't know about it, you might not recognize it because some of the characters are a little bit more they're a little bit lighter on the spectrum.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
This show, you can't miss it. They literally discuss it constantly. If you somehow miss that Sam is autistic, you were sleeping during the show.
Yeah.
The title literally references how
he may have been bullied, or definitely did get bullied. In school because of the fact that they were autistic, and it's something that they can't help. And I feel like just making people more aware of the spectrum, and the fact that it exists at all, and that that might be the way or the reason that somebody is the way that they are, and how to not deal with those people.
Just better understand those people so you can try to meet them where they are. It's not their fault that their brain works differently than yours, and it is cool that shows like this exist because
agreed.
There are people out there who, because if you're even in our generation or you're older, there's a very good chance that you were not diagnosed when you were younger.
Yeah.
Because they really only diagnosed people who were
with, more severe,
really severe, really high on the spectrum, I think is the term. I could be wrong. I'm not, and I'm in no way an expert. But just now people are, it's more out there, and it's more, people can get the help to get the better coping mechanisms to deal with the life that they've been handed. Autism's not going away, so you have to learn to better equip yourself for
better life. Understand it in general, not only to help yourself, but also to create a better understanding with your fellow man. Because I feel like ultimately, and this is me being on my soapbox,
we're on soapbox today.
You should always do your best to try to understand your fellow.
Oh, that's a hard stance.
Be
accepting and understanding. I don't know if I can.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it. Maybe we shouldn't divide ourselves. I don't know. That's just me.
All right, so moving on to Chris's number 3.
So speaking of lovable characters that you want to be friends with, my number 3...
I don't remember what your number 3 is. How bad of a joke is this?
Is Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I mean, you say that as a joke, but I feel like there definitely are characters in this that are very charming, and therefore
there are characters who are very charming.
The main character, sure, you don't
maybe you want to root for, but in the end, defeat themselves.
Okay, wait. I need you to pause real quick. I only made it through like season 1 or 2. Took a hiatus. Haven't got around to it. Does
you plan on?
Yeah, I probably at some point. Yeah,
okay.
But just a real quick question, only about this one specific character. I know how the show ends. I watched a spoiler video once before I even started watching it. But you're saying all the characters get bad throughout the show. Are you saying that young Walt or Walt Jr.?
No, Walt Jr. never.
Okay, cool. Okay, then I'm fine. I'm cool with all the other characters having like Walt Jr. though. Like he's such a good kid. You don't want to see him, you know.
Walt Jr. Again, another character with autism.
Does he have autism? I don't know if he's officially diagnosed with autism. He has a different special need.
Is it cerebral palsy?
I do believe he has cerebral palsy. Yes, I believe the actor does as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is okay. Yeah, that's actually my bad. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the main
misdiagnosed.
Cerebral palsy.
You have to turn off stream now. You misdiagnosed someone.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We just turn your camera off.
Fair. But yeah, Walt Jr. is pretty much the only character who you don't end up really like hating by the end of the show. But boy howdy, talk about another roller coaster ride of a show. You get these super high highs and these super low lows.
It's kind of like being addicted to meth.
A little bit, yeah. One might say that. Yeah, you could say that this entire show is a really good analogy for being a meth addict.
All right, cool. I'm glad we discussed that part of it.
So the plot is our main character, Walt White, gets diagnosed with cancer, and the cancer treatment's super expensive. And he also wants to make sure that if he does die, that his family has enough, money to live off of. Because he's not going to be able to be there to provide for him, right? So a kind of a noble aspiration. He wants to provide for his family.
His new family that's right as he's getting diagnosed with cancer, he is having a new baby on the way as well. Or just had one. Yeah. So it's super
had a child.
Yeah. He has Walt Jr. A kid with disabilities, which already makes it more expensive to have that child, and then you now have another kid on the way and he's gonna die if he doesn't get treatment.
He might be on his way out, because I think it might be the fact that he is for sure going to die because of the cancer.
I feel like if I remember right, because once again, like I said, I've seen season 1 and 2. I believe he has stage 4 cancer. It's believed to be terminal, and the treatment only prolongs his life. It doesn't even save him, if I remember right. It's
he's pretty much he's got a time. Yeah. And then that's gonna be it. And so he wants to make as much money as fast as possible, and so he decides to recruit one of his old high school students, because he was a chemistry teacher. One of his old chem students to cook meth, and the whole show centers around them cooking meth, getting hooked up with big time drug dealers and drug lords, and the kind of rise and fall, and rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall of them cooking meth. All their struggles, and there's some moments that are really hilarious. There's an episode where they're building a meth lab, and there's a fly in the lab, and they've got to make sure that the lab is as clean as possible. So they've got to get this fly out of there, right? Because there can't be any contaminants in the meth. And that's just the episode. Is them hunting down that fly, and you're like, wow.
I just watched the season 1 episode where Jesse, who is the chem student, Jesse has to he's trying to dispose of the body in the tub. And I'll just say that I don't want to spoil anymore. If you know science, you might be able to figure it out. But just
Another show with a lot of dark humor. But man, this show makes you it makes you want to wrap your hands around the throat of the main character, because there's a point where, like, all of the people involved in this situation probably could have walked away and been, like, fine. Maybe not morally, but, like, in terms of, finances and health.
Pretty early on, he gets a lot of money and just keeps going, and you're like, could have maybe tried to stop.
Just stop.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things where you get a taste of the thing, and then you just need more. And you're like, all right, I got a little bit more, but I need a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it kind of just keeps snowballing and snowballing until things get, like, insanely out of control. But the storytelling is super captivating. You get super invested in all these characters' lives. And every moment just feels like it could be a train wreck at any second. And it's a thrill ride all the way till the end. I will say that much. If you somehow haven't watched Breaking Bad, and the spoilers haven't ruined it for you, it is definitely worth a watch. I guess if I had to say recommendations out of my list here, Breaking Bad would probably be my number one for recommending, just because I maybe have a little bit more niche taste. Actually, no, I'd put that on the number 2.
Okay.
Queen's Gambit at number 3.
Oh.
And that's my number 3 for my top 5.
All
adults.
Right.
I had a moment. We'll pretend it didn't happen.
All right, so my number 3 is It's How I Met Your Mother.
Oh, is it at church?
No, I mean I'm single, so I mean maybe, but I don't know it yet, and I have to tell my children about every possible person I dated that isn't their mother before I get to finally telling them about how I met their mother.
Oh, the plot of How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
Okay.
So How I Met Your Mother is a show it's about the guy telling his children about how he met his mother. But let's be real, that's the plot, but it isn't. The plot this is another Friends. It's that kind of show. Here's 5 or 6 people, friends, who are living in a big city. We changed which city, we took away a friend, but it's the same idea. And I think they do it better, personally. I really like How I Met Your Mother. I think all the characters, except for the main character, are really charming, and you really like them.
That's fair.
Ted kind of sucks, charming. But
Ted's kind of a dirt thing.
Yeah, you kind of don't like Ted, but it's once again, I guess we have to like my number 5. Apparently, I like shows that end badly. The ending to this show, I'd say the last season especially, but I'd even argue the last 2 seasons. Like the drop off starts. Like this isn't a drastic drop off for the last season. I think there's a starting slope in the second to last season, and then the last season does completely drop out. Sure, the last season they really try to stretch one weekend into a whole season, and then undo everything that the show was supposed to be about in the last episode. Spoiler, cool. Sorry for people who haven't got around to watch How I Met Your Mother. The mom dies at the end of the show, and his kids are like, "Yeah, we know. Now go marry Aunt Robin." Who is one of the other main characters who, realistically, the show is all about their love story. So it wasn't surprising that it happened, but,
Also a little bit of a kick in the teeth.
It's a little bit of really? That's how this is going to end? We did all this build up and, no real payoff, just it's over?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, overall, this is one of those shows where, maybe, other shows Game of Thrones or another sitcom that would never make a top anything of my list, The Office, maybe don't watch the last season because it's not great. Yeah, How I Met Your Mother, it's great. The characters are, really charming. I like all of them except for Ted. But even Ted has his moments where you don't hate him. But but yeah, you also have to ignore the general plot of why is this father telling his kids about all the people he slept with and the drugs he did and what's the point of this?
This guy's a terrible dad.
Yeah, like, once again, Ted, not a great character. Terrible father. But it's a fun show. All the, like, Lily and Marshall are, like, relationship goals, other than, like, the cheating and the other stuff, but that's not the point.
You know.
But yeah, they cheat. Actually, they might not cheat on each other. One of them, Marshall and Lily. Lily does leave Marshall like at one point, but I don't remember if she cheated on him. She just left him.
Oh.
But yeah, they end up getting married. They have a kid. It's great. It's a great show. If somehow you haven't watched it and you like sitcoms, go watch it. It's fun. If you don't like sitcoms, this is a sitcom. You're not gonna like it. There are some sitcoms like the great show Raising Hope, which you can find out more about on Sit Commentary. That show, I feel like people who don't like sitcoms might enjoy, like Chris can attest to, because he's not a fan of sitcoms and he enjoys it. There are shows that are like that. How I Met Your Mother is not one of those. How I Met Your Mother is a sitcom through and through. But I love it, and part of why, I'll even say, I think there are better shows out there that could have made this list, but because this is my top 5 shows, I can't ignore the fact that I loved this show at a point in my life. I watched this show like 7 or 8 times the early seasons.
Yes, you did.
Like
Yes, you did.
I've seen the first 6 or I think it's like 8 seasons for the show. I think I've seen the first 6 seasons like 7 times. And
You
then
watched
like
it a lot. I
season 7 twice, and the last season once. Like I've seen this show a ton. I had to put it on the list, despite the fact that I can sit here and tell you there are better shows out there. But yeah.
Fair.
All right. Well, let's talk about your number 2.
All right. My number 2 is going to finally reveal the fact that I am indeed a fan of anime. I'm sorry to those who I've disappointed.
Weeaboo trash.
That's right. I am a weeb at heart, through and through. My number 2 show is a show called Psycho-Pass. And it definitely kind of fits in the genre that I kind of love the most in terms of really any form of media, which is a psychological thriller. So this show is
But
set.
But Chris, it's a cartoon, so it has to be for children. Why is it on the list?
No.
It was a joke.
For
I
those
know.
of you who don't understand what anime is, it may be animated, but it is far from anything.
No, all cartoons are for
that any child should
kids.
watch.
All cartoons are for kids.
As a matter of fact, if you're not a stable adult, I would recommend you should not watch this show.
All right, I'll skip it.
Oh, okay. Right on. On to number 1.
No, talk about your number 2. Talk about it. Tell me why it's
So,
great.
this show is set in a dystopian future. Well, a dystopian utopian future. One of those things where, everything should be fine, but it's not. So crime has kind of been solved.
Oh.
Because in this future, everyone has a crime coefficient. So as you go throughout the day, your phone, your laptop, really any technology, like traffic cameras, will scan people as they go. And every time you're scanned, a certain crime coefficient will come up. And so basically what that is the likelihood of you committing a crime. And that could be anything from like murder, theft, you name it. And so basically it's kind of a scale. And so once you get past a certain point, you're basically past the point of rehabilitation. At which point they send these people called dominators on you. And these people are people who have gone way beyond the point of rehabilitation on their crime coefficient, but have been deemed able to be worked with within, like, they're basically a part of the police force. Which you're like, oh, great, you know, these people who are basically psychopaths. Hey, name psychopaths, but also not. Are, you know, determining whether certain people should live or die. Great, awesome, love that. Definitely not a, you know, a poke at how American crime systems work right now. But anyways,
I will neither confirm nor deny if I agree with Chris's statement. I may or may not. You will not know.
But yeah, so it kind of explores the ideas of like how well this certain system would work, and spoilers, there might be flaws based on how this system works, because, you know, sometimes you have really bad days, and sometimes you have really unhealthy thoughts as a person, and some days you're like the happiest person on the planet, and maybe that's for like an hour or two, and you're like, man, I could take on the world right now. And then, you know, the next hour you're like, man, I should just give everything up and settle for working a retail job for the rest of my life. But anyways, this show, oh man, it just explores a lot of really interesting ideas. You follow this kind of bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, kind of very idealistic young girl. Let me look up the name of the character. Not that it matters a whole bunch. But the main character is, in fact, a female antagonist, and she is kind of, in terms of like this crime coefficient, someone who has never really had a bad crime coefficient. And usually, sometimes people get like cloudy days, is what they call them, where like sometimes it gets a little bit dark green, and that's not good. But she's like, it's always been crystal blue. So she's kind of an exception, and she has to like learn how to work with these enforcers who have just like their hope for humanity is basically lost. And man, the dynamics between the characters is just super interesting. All the things that they explore in this show are just ideas that I personally vibe with a lot. And there is a lot of very dark subject matter and some heavier subject matter. So if you're a faint of heart, or not in the best place as a person, maybe avoid this show for now. But if you're a big anime fan, and you're a little bit on the more hardened side, I guess, or just in an okay place, I would definitely recommend this one. It's definitely my favorite anime of all time, with an addendum, I will say, because it does have 2 seasons. Do not watch the second season. Do not. It destroys everything the first season sets up. And I tried to watch the second season because I love the first season. But I was like, all right, I got a few episodes in, and I was done. I couldn't do it. But yeah, first season Psycho-Pass, absolutely beautiful.
Due to basic research I had to do to find this picture, I think there's at least 3 seasons, but
I think they're coming up with the 3rd season. Oh no, a 3rd season is out. Yeah. Well, there you go. Don't watch anything past season 1.
The weird review for one of your favorite shows is that you don't like most of the show.
Well, that's because the second season kind of ruins all of the really good stuff that they kind of set up.
No, I understand. I'm just saying it sounds like it's not a good show then.
Well, if it was just a 1-season show, it'd be one of the best shows.
Okay.
It's an addendum.
Also, once again, sounds good, but it's a cartoon, so it's actually a kid's show, so disqualified.
No one under the age of 18 should ever watch this show.
All right, let's talk about my number 2.
Okay.
Which is not a cartoon because I'm not a child.
Yes, you are. Don't lie.
That's true. All right, so my number 2 is the show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I guess we have to immediately have the addendum of I understand that Joss Whedon is scum. I'm sorry, but sadly, he is scum who used to at least have a lot of talent, and he made a phenomenal show. I'm sorry. This show... So now to talk about the show. The show, it's centered around the character Buffy Summers. She's, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar. She is, our main character. She is the vampire slayer. Every generation there is born one chosen girl to slay vampires, to kill them. That's her thing. She has to kill vampires. She was chosen. She doesn't. At times she doesn't want to be the slayer, but she has to be. Yeah, you kind of follow the show. It's not just her, obviously, because that's not a show. You don't have a show with one character.
What?
You have these other characters they kind of develop. They call themselves the Scooby Gang. Referencing Scooby Doo. They have like their little group of misfits, if you will, that help her stop the forces of evil. You have Giles, who is her watcher, which is like her mentor. He's there to help teach her how to best slay vampires.
And other forces of evil.
And other forces of evil, yes. You also have Willow, who is played by Allison Hannigan, who also played Lily on How I Met Your Mother. Right. So cool fact. 2 of my top 3 have Allison Hannigan. I think she's a good actress.
Also, she's a cutie.
She is attractive. That's not why I like these shows.
And that's fair.
But yeah, you got Willow. She's kind of starts out as kind of the nerdy girl. She definitely has one of the biggest arcs throughout the show of like change. I won't get into too many spoilers. I guess I don't know. I don't care. She ends up becoming a witch later. That leads to some issues. Yeah. You also have Xander, who is the like lovable goof friend of the group.
Well, you wouldn't guess that by looking at his casting picture.
I'm sure you probably would, is what you're saying, right? Is that the joke? I haven't looked.
No, you wouldn't.
Guess you wouldn't guess? Okay, you're actually being serious. That you wouldn't guess. Yeah, he's the lovable goof. He's the dork. That's kind of your main cast. There's a couple other characters that come throughout the show. The first couple seasons has the character Angel, who is a vampire that is a love interest to Buffy. What? Whoa, forbidden. But it's okay because he has a soul. He's the only vampire with a soul because he was cursed by gypsies. Don't worry about it. Just yeah. So he exists. He has his own spin-off. It's okay. I like it. It was not my top 5 shows. Part of what I love about this show, though, is it's a fun, mystical action show. But like a lot of shows I like, if you haven't noticed by my personality on these things, I like to laugh.
Comedy?
I like comedy. And
is there comedy in it?
There is. Once again, hate to bring it up, Joss Whedon at one point was apparently always a jerk, but at one point was really good about writing a more dramatic story that has a lot of comedy in it. Look at the first Avengers movie. That's not a comedy, but there's a lot of comedic elements, and I kind of feel like that movie, in a lot of ways, set the tone for what the MCU was moving forward. Like, that really kind of focused on, like, how MCU movies were made with, like, the mostly action-based story with, like, a lot of comedic elements. I'm sure, like, there were movies before that had comedic elements, but, like, I feel like that really kind of... It sucks that Joss Whedon was talented. He really knew how to develop stories with action that had very comedic elements that also, at least on paper, seemed to empower women. Apparently he's a jerk to women, so it's a real weird dichotomy there. But but a lot of he's made a lot of stories that on paper are supposed to empower women. So, but yeah, I it's a show that I'll be honest, I almost considered not even putting it on the list because of all the controversy with Joss Whedon, and it feels awkward to, say, hey, go watch this thing that very much feels like it's made by Joss Whedon. It definitely has his voice as a creator throughout it, but the thing is, it was good. The actors really worked hard, and they really delivered on the dialogue they were given and all that. Like, it's a great show. It's another show like How I Met Your Mother that I've seen an ungodly amount of times. I've not so much all of the show, but like, because I'd start trying to watch it and then end up falling away and not finishing it, and then it'd be like a year later, and I'm like, I gotta start over. So I've seen the first season of Buffy probably like 10 or 11 times.
Gee, I don't think I've seen any show that much, to be quite frank.
So it would be disingenuous to not put this on this list despite the asterisk that needs to be next to it.
That's fair.
But honestly, if you can look past that asterisk of the fact that even on the set of the show, some people might have been mistreated, it's a good show. It's a fun show. If you want to watch it, I think you'll enjoy it. If you can't watch it because of what you know about how Joss Whedon treated people, I understand and respect that. I still would recommend it. Not higher than the other things that I said on my recommend list, which was my number, was Atypical as my number 2 recommend, and my number 1 recommend, which we haven't got to yet. But yeah, Buffy, I think it's a great show. It's got some issues. It's kind of like Chris's show. Both our number 2s have an addendum next to them, apparently.
Yeah, big old fat addendum.
Yeah. So let's talk about our number 1 shows, which I don't think do.
Yeah. My number 1 show, if we're going to talk about one of the creators, I would say is the opposite of a Joss Whedon type. A man who is prolific and ahead of his time. And that is Rod Serling, the narrating voice for the Twilight Zone. And I think this is kind of it was interesting that this really came out as my number 1 as a adult-oriented TV show, just because it doesn't really have a plot. It's an anthology series of all of these different sci-fi and kind of horror, drama, thriller stories, all thrown into just a mishmash kind of show. All these stories are kind of wrapped up by the end of the episode. But man, for a show that's as old as it is, the writing and the storytelling are just masterclass. Like, Rod Serling, if you've ever watched an interview with Rod Serling, which you should, by the way, he had, as a white man, in the time that he lived in, had views that were very progressive for the time. He saw people as people, regardless of their skin color. Which, in the time when Rod Serling was writing The Twilight Zone was not necessarily the case in most parts of the U.S. Or worldwide, really. And he explores a lot of ideas that are very, very, very interesting in the show. And of course, there's some episodes that don't exactly hit. But I don't think there was a ton of Twilight Zone episodes where I walked away going like, that didn't really hit for me. Like, all of them were like, yeah, all right, I'm ready to watch the next one. Like, well, what's the next world-ending situation I'm about to be put into? What's the next warning to humanity that I've got from Rod Serling? The guy's got and speaking of his voice, like, if you haven't heard Rod Serling talk, it's truly a unmistakable voice. as someone who is very much into voice acting, and not that he did like voice acting, but his voice is just so iconic to me. And he was so eloquent too. And doing a podcast where you don't have edits, you definitely feel goofy when you make mistakes.
We're not eloquent.
No, yeah, we are what Rod Sterling is not.
We're also both the opposite of progressive. Just kidding.
What?
I made a joke about how we weren't progressive as well. Just like adding up to being the opposite of him.
Whoa. Yeah, no.
I feel like our soapbox earlier showed that we at least are somewhat progressive.
Yeah, we're progressive. We're just not eloquent at all.
Yeah.
Very incapable of speaking our points.
What you're saying is if Rod Sterling was going to describe the importance of autism representation in media, he would have done a much better job than we did.
He would have done it in a much more efficient manner in a much shorter amount of time.
Yeah.
And it would have been much more concise.
Yeah.
But yeah, I admire that man. I don't know. And this show really just kind of highlights his abilities as a writer. And, geez. Yeah. This show in particular, getting off of the I Love Rod Sterling train.
Why did you choose him to be your friend last week?
I'm sorry. I don't know if I'd be able to get along with Rod Sterling because he's probably a little bit too much of an intellectual for me.
That's fair.
Also, I feel like he's probably a little bit more to himself. But, that's neither here nor there. Twilight Zone, I feel like, is a show that I could really go back and watch all the way back through, which for me is not something I really do with any show. Psycho-Pass, I did rewatch the first season 2 or 3 times.
I would never rewatch a show.
Yeah, no, I know. Like, definitely not 7 or 8 times.
I don't know if there's a show on my list that I've watched once. Oh, Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones I've only seen once.
Oh, okay.
Atypical, I've only seen half of it twice, but that's because I rewatched it with someone, to be fair. So it is a little bit different. But, yeah, I've rewatched a lot of shows. Yeah.
Twilight Zone, I feel like I could go back and, rewatch every single episode, just because every episode is, so contained in its own little world, that it's just, as a show, very digestible. And there's definitely some classics in there.
It's black and white, so I'm never gonna watch it.
Yeah, I will say there is.
I'm joking. I'm joking, but I'm also not because I haven't watched it, and maybe that's part of the deterrent. But that's not fair. You can make a great art that's still black and white. So. Yeah,
no. And I feel like that is definitely something that deters a lot of people. Is it's a show from the 1950s. It's a sci-fi show. There's definitely some episodes where it's a little bit more special effects heavy, and it's not good. But the writing, all the same, I feel like brings it back together. God, yeah.
I've seen
because even in those
one
episodes, the really heavily corny, sci-fi, heavy special effects. The writing is just doesn't get up, or doesn't. It doesn't drop in quality.
I've only seen a couple episodes. I only remember one. I saw the episode of now I'm blanking on his name, and I'm gonna feel real stupid. Captain Kirk, William Shatner.
Yeah.
I've seen the plane episode with William Shatner. I've seen that episode. I think that's one. I've definitely seen a couple others, but that's one of the few I remember.
Yeah. If anyone, because I'm not gonna ask anyone to watch the entire series of the Twilight Zone. There's a lot that don't quite hit in the 21st century because of the special effects, and that I understand. But there are some that don't really have a lot of special effects at all, that tell a story really well, just in their own right. There's one where kind of a end of the world situation. There's this guy, and he just wants to read books. He's a big bookworm.
I think I've seen that one as well.
And his wife doesn't want him to read books because that's all he does, and he's wasting his time reading those books. And so there's an atomic bomb that drops, and it kills everyone, his wife included. And he's the last man left on Earth, and somehow the books survive as well.
I mean, books. Everyone knows books are, atomic bomb proof.
Yeah, and he goes to the library and he's like, "Oh, there's all these books. There's so many books. I've got all the time in the world." Because it was a waste of time before to read all those books, but now what else is there to do? And this character has glasses, and he needs them to read, and he goes to pick up one of the books off the ground, and the glasses drop and break. And it's just the most perfect irony. And you kind of want to laugh, but also you're like, dang, what a way. What a way. And it's definitely a show that's been referenced in a few other like pop culture heavy referencing.
I believe
kind of
both episodes we just referenced were also covered on it. Like there were jokes about them in Simpsons.
Yeah, Simpsons, Family Guy. It's not fair. There was time now. It was kind of one of the famous lines from that episode. But there's a lot of really other good episodes that deal with like death and immortality, the consequences of that, and the be careful what you wish for. But it's a lot more kind of interesting take on that, and how getting what you want all the time isn't always a good thing. But yeah, lots of really good subject matter in that show, and really the writing is definitely the highlight of and honestly the acting is really good too in most of the episodes.
Not the William Shatner one, because it's William Shatner.
No, because it's William Shatner, of course. So that's going to be doo-doo.
Unless you like William Shatner, which there are people who do, and then you'll love it because it's William Shatner being William Shatner.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the acting and the writing complement each other beautifully in this show. And the nice thing about this show is that it's not a huge time dedication. Most of these episodes are pretty short. You don't have to watch an entire season to grasp any one episode. You can just kind of sit down, say, hey, this one seems like it has an interesting premise. Let's pop this one on and see what happens. While you're eating a dinner. After work, or pop one on during lunch break. So yeah, if you've got a little bit of extra time, maybe pop on an episode or two of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to my number one now. Let's get to the real number one.
No, let's actually just end the podcast there, I think.
Oh.
A good spot.
All right, I guess. Thank you for. Nah, just kidding. We are going to discuss. We're going to discuss my number one show.
I guess.
Okay. My number one show is BoJack Horseman. How do I?
Man, I would like to say that I wanted to put the show on my top 5.
We kind of have an unofficial rule that you can't. At least try not to put the same things on the two lists, because it kind of ruins the discussion aspect of what this show is.
Yeah, but I would like to say, despite this one not being on my list, I do absolutely love this show. Go on.
Okay. I think BoJack Horseman quite possibly is not only my favorite show, from what I've seen, I think it's the best show maybe ever made. I know it's a lofty claim and people are going to disagree because that's an opinion, but just the art of what this show is, like, that's a term we've used in, I think maybe we have used in past episodes. It makes us sound, kind of weird and maybe almost a little, hoity-toity, but like, this show is
I didn't use it when describing the Twilight Zone, but I would say the Twilight Zone is art.
Yeah, like, I think we did on our movie episode. And we definitely did in, like, we talked about artistic merit in the, never before released, pre-alpha version of the show.
Ah, yes. The
Yeah,
lost
yeah,
episode.
the lost episode. Yeah. So BoJack Horseman is just like to describe it. It's a show. You follow this horse who's an anthropomorphic horse.
Horseman, one might
Yeah,
say.
Horseman. Yeah, Horseman. He used to be on a very famous TV show back in the '90s, even
Yeah.
And it was
That's all.
the
Theme song,
show.
by the
Yeah,
way.
it was. So back in the '90s, he was on a very famous TV show. That's the song you hear at the end of every episode. It changes style, but you hear it every episode.
You do.
Um, it just I don't even know where to start. Like I love this show so much, it's hard to talk about it. Just it's just the way it subverts your expectations. This show starts off as kind of a weird, silly comedy, like completely
Yeah,
through and
very
through.
offbeat comedy.
Offbeat comedy, nothing else at the beginning, first couple episodes. And then around the middle point of season one, there's this turn of just there's still really silly comedic elements. There's characters like Mr. Peanut Butter and Todd, who are two
Todd.
characters throughout the show, who are always, well, not always, but the majority of their point in the show is to be there to be silly and have fun and do weird antics.
Yeah.
But the heart of what this show is, like, you're dealing with this horse, Bojack, who he's got problems. He's got a lot of issues. He's got
He's got a lot.
He's
of
got a
problems.
drug addiction. He's got, alcoholism. He's got depression. He's got so many other things. And he's one of those characters that you don't want to relate with, and you kind of feel bad when you do. He's one of those kind of characters.
You relate with them.
You never really relate because, a lot of people deal with depression. Like, for me, it was the depression side of him. There's a lot of other non-redeeming qualities about him that I didn't relate with, obviously, but like just he's kind of a horrible person, but like he's also there's so much humanity in him, and you feel you feel for him. You want to see him change. And I guess I could spoil something. I'm not going to. I'm going to choose not to because this is my number.
This is a show I definitely wouldn't spoil for you.
Yeah, this is my number one recommendation. Period. Go watch this show. Here's the thing. There's sex jokes. There's some other, there's profanity. Not as much as some shows out there, especially like an adult animated show. Like one of the rules, like the writers have, is they only use the F word once per season, which is it makes it mean more, which is weird for profanity to mean something in a television show.
Yeah, it's got more emphasis.
Like they use it once per season, and they make sure it's a moment that hits home and hits hard, and you're like, oh, this scene's important, kind of a thing. And it's just like right there, that's art. Like, yeah, sure, there's vulgarity in it. You could argue maybe you shouldn't watch something with vulgarity. I understand that if you're, a religious person and that's not something you're into. But just the art of what this show is and like the way it does things, it does it better than anything I've ever seen. I love this show. The characters are great. There's other characters we could list off. I guess the one, flaw.
So there's a long list of characters because BoJack Horseman is the main character in the show, but there is a lot of other characters that you very much are following constantly through the entirety of the show.
I'd say your main other ones that really get like arcs are you have Todd, Mr. Peanut Butter, Diane, and Princess Carolyn. Princess Carolyn's a cat. Mr. Peanut Butter's a dog. I will say one complaint I heard about the show. I don't think it has a merit as a complaint, but some people don't like that there are talking animals for no reason. And I do understand, like, yeah, it's weird and it's never explained, but just ignore that because the show has so much heart and so much artistic merit that to not watch it for that it's silly, and it's just it's a great show.
I'll say this is one of the few comedy shows as well that really exceeds in its comedic writing, but also tells a very compelling story all at the same time.
That's fair. It's one of the few shows that really can, like, you'll have other comedies out there that will have like the dramatic moment of the episode. This will have like full episodes that are just dramatic. You'll have like a comedy joke here or there, but like I'm going to reference one episode. I'm not going to explain why it happened, but there's this one episode called The Churro. I think the episode The Churro might be my favorite episode in television history. It's brief explanation. There is a character that has passed away, and Bojack is giving
just a monologue.
Bojack is giving a eulogy. It is a single shot on Bojack for 23 minutes, just talking, and
you know what? They pull it off.
That shouldn't work.
It shouldn't. It really shouldn't.
There's another episode where, they shoot it like a silent film because he's in a situation where he can't talk. Once again, that shouldn't work, but it does. And there's so much of the show that it shouldn't work, but it does in exceeding ways. Better than, this is my favorite show ever. Just period.
Yeah, and without giving away too much detail, there is a pretty general plot to this show, which I feel like is what kind of makes it work as a comedy show, because it's not just like a sitcom where, wacky thing happens. It's all kind of building towards something. And so you're following Bojack, who is, a very famous,
he was very famous in the 90s. He was on a TV show, and he's kind of just living off that fame that is now dwindling and dwindling.
To make it in Hollywood again, really. And you follow that whole that whole journey of him trying to make it again, and along with that, the addictions that he is now facing after kind of being brought up in the world of Hollywood.
And he has a terror, and they deal with
and also his childhood.
His childhood is so rough, and they deal with that, and they deal with pain in such a real way on this show.
Yeah, they don't pull any punches.
Yeah, and it's just, it's great. I will say, I guess, to bring up one of the other complaints that's out there, is Diane is played by Alison Brie. Diane's character is half Asian
American.
Yeah, she's a half Asian American. I think her other half is, is it sheep or is it white? I don't. It's the whole different weird side plot. I think her mom's white, and her brothers are sheep. Don't ask. It doesn't matter. But her father's character is Asian, so she is half Asian. She is played by a fully white woman. I get it. There's an element of whitewashing there. And it's going back, if they could have redone the show, they probably should have cast a different person. But that doesn't take away from the quality of what this show was. Alison Brie did a great job in that role. Should she have maybe not got it? Maybe. But don't let that, and don't let the internet saying that's
watching this show.
Because it's still yes, they shouldn't have done it. I'll acknowledge it. I said I think this is the best show ever. There's still a flaw. They shouldn't have probably done that. But it's still worth watching. This is not only my number one show, it's my number one recommendation, because some of the other shows on this list, I talked about Buffy and How I Met Your Mother. I don't think those are the greatest shows ever. I just really enjoyed them in my life. This, I think, is the greatest show ever. So, go watch it.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it.
Yeah.
I will also highly recommend this show. Writing is really good in this show, and it deals with a lot of heavy subject matter that, in a really professional way, despite there being a lot of comedy afoot, in almost every episode. That's been our Kentucky Route 5.
So to wrap it up, thank you for watching, and just a little update. Chris is going to be out of town next week, so we will not be able to record an episode. So, as of right now, there are 2 options that I'm kind of floating. I can't confirm which one's going to happen. There might be a special Kentucky Route 5 with just me. I might have a guest, but there will be some sort of Kentucky Route 5 next week. Tune in. Hope you enjoyed it.
Or don't.
No, please do. Ignore him. Ignore him. Please do. Please tune in.
Or you can. I guess you can tune in.
Please. All right. Thank you for watching.
Bye.